Welcome back to Pursuing Profit with Principles. I'm your host, Regina Partain Bergman, and I am delighted to have a guest on the show today that I think is doing some amazing things in the world. And in fact, he's on a mission to change the world, and I'm going to let him share all of that with you. But Ike Ikoku, welcome to the show. Glad you're here today.
Regina, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to hang out with you today.
Awesome. And that's what we're going to do, folks. We're going to hang out. We're going to catch up. We're going to talk about what's new and exciting in Ike's life and what he's working on. But Ike, let's start by letting them get to know you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey that brought you to where you are now and what it is that you're working on?
Sure. So I've had a very colorful career, as many say. Started up in the accounting industry, spent about 5, 6 years in that, transitioned into the financial services industry, and then eventually into owning my own business. I always share with people that there's a couple of different kinds of entrepreneurs that exist out there. There are what I'd call born entrepreneurs. Those are those kids who were selling ice cream and cookies and everything else at the stand growing up, and they just have that bug in them. And you could look at them and go, yeah, that's not going to be a college grad. They're probably going to do something. And then there's what we call forced entrepreneurs, which is what I consider myself to be. I became an entrepreneur through divine circumstances, I guess you could say, many, many moons ago. And, the long and short of it was right around 9/11. Before 9/11, I was still working in what used to be the big six accounting firms. And I started really just putting to practice a lot of what we were doing with the kind of work we were doing for a lot of high net worth, privately held companies. And so I was trying to mimic that in my background and, was fortunate enough to accumulate a little bit of wealth at a young age. That all came to a screeching halt at 9/11, obviously, because I had a lot of investments domestically, internationally, across the world. And with 9/11, all that tanked. I also experienced unemployment for the first time ever. And I wasn't unemployed for a month or two like most people. I was unemployed for 18 months, which was kind of ridiculous.
That's tough.
That's a long time to be unemployed, but it was divinely inspired, for lack of a better word. Because if you looked at my background back then, if you were going to bet on somebody who could get reemployed, I was probably a safe bet. I had a CPA license, I had a CFP license, I had a master's degree. I'd worked for the two of the big six accounting firms in the world, and I was what you'd call a safe bet. But God knew that my purpose and destiny was no longer in corporate America. He also knew how stubborn I was.
I can't imagine that.
So I believe he made it perfectly clear that even if I were to try to pay my way to try to get a job, I couldn't get one. So I lost all this wealth, had my income deteriorating from being unemployed, and then my real estate portfolio of almost a dozen properties went south on me. So the trifecta, ended up filing bankruptcy, starting all over, and was fortunate enough to restore my fortunes, started my coaching consulting business, and I've just kind of continued. So I've done a lot of different things over the course of my life, and I always get asked, like, what business are you in? Because depending on which day of the week, I might be promoting or emphasizing a different facet of what I do. But at the heart of it, I think what I'm really, like, the business that I am in is really the belief changing business, right?
I like that.
And I think a lot of us don't realize that we are also in the belief changing business. Like for me, part of what I like to do is try to shift people's beliefs about what's possible for them to be, do, or have in this life. I spent some time with the folks at the Y Institute, and I got even more detailed as to just my purpose and my why. And part of it is to try to help people make sense of complex items, complex things, to find better and more efficient ways to really accomplish what they once thought wasn't possible to do.
Oh, I like that.
So that's really, really just put me on a different trajectory and kind of understanding why I'm wired and why I have so many different things that I've done and how they all kind of mesh together. Because I don't know about you, I mean, you might run across people who they just seem to be existing as opposed to living life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And I tell people life doesn't begin until you get to the other side of your purpose. So part of what I do is I try to help people identify, clarify, and magnify their purpose. And in the process of doing that, oftentimes we will build 6 and maybe even 7-figure streams of active, residual, or passive income so they can live their best life and really give full expression to their purpose, their passion, and really the promise that they have to the world to try to help make it a better place.
That's beautiful. I love that. You know, I like what you said about living that purpose and living versus existing.
Yeah.
When you find what really truly excites you when you do it, it's a marvelous thing. I know when I get off the phone with a client,
Mm-hmm.
and I have had some role to play in them achieving their vision, it's just like you can't contain the energy or the excitement. I have to go find my husband wherever he's at and say, have I ever told you I love what I do? I think he's heard that more than once.
Sure. You know, it's critically important that we love what we do.
It is. It is.
I shared some statistics on social media about a week or so ago, just referencing some data from the Gallup poll, which had studied, the billions of people that were in the workforce globally. And what they showed was that 15% of most people are actually not engaged in their workplace. Code word for 85% of people were not engaged in their workplace.
Yeah.
Another way to look at that is 85% of people completely hate what they're doing.
Yeah.
And there could be many reasons for that, but I think top amongst all of them is this whole idea of, really finding your purpose. My piece of content that I shared today on social media said something along the lines of finding your purpose is actually more intoxicating than falling in love.
Yeah. It can be extremely intoxicating. That is so true.
Yes, indeed. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's the Think and Grow Rich books, once you finally figure out like your reason for being, why you exist, why all of the experiences that you have had have all culminated to just this moment in time where you step into this new version that was always really there, but now just coming into your awareness of who you are. I mean, you're literally unstoppable.
Yeah.
We're both coaches. We work with businesses and people who try to help them grow. And when it comes to marketing, I marvel at how a lot of times people stumble and have difficulty around marketing. And I go, you've got one of the greatest marketing tools ever created, and it's sitting right underneath your nose. You just got to know how to use your mouth and communicate what it is you do, and to do it in a way that it literally whets the appetite of those who are predisposed, pre-inclined, who've been sitting there waiting for you to show up and help them bridge the gap between where they are right now, a place of dissatisfaction, to where it is that they know they should be, a place of complete satisfaction, right? And you're that link for them.
I love that it's so important. I think, especially as entrepreneurs coming into the entrepreneurial scene, folks have a tendency to be fearful of making sales, fearful of pushing, and when we really connect with the fact that you have a purpose and a role to play, and people need what you have to offer. They're looking for you. They're waiting for you. They can't find you. You got to get out there and make yourself known and be willing to be visible so they can find you, because you have what they need.
It is so, so, so important. Amongst the many diseases, ailments that entrepreneurs face, one of them I call is the triple D syndrome.
Triple D syndrome.
Triple D syndrome, which is where we fail to be discovered, distinguished, and distinguished, and differentiated.
And differentiated, yeah.
And the discovery piece is just so huge. I mean, there's a member in our mastermind group, and she shared a story with me when she first joined of how she'd suffered from what's called frozen shoulder syndrome. I don't know if you've ever been exposed to
I
that.
do. Yeah, I mean, I
I
know what
used
it
to get
is.
migraine headaches a long time ago, and I know those are really bad. And based on her description of what she was going through, it's like 100 times worse.
Oh,
She went through 7 years, Regina, of hopping from one doctor to the other, not getting any relief, spending thousands
right.
and thousands of dollars until a friend of a friend of a friend finally referred her to this one doctor, a naturopathic doctor who just completely changed the trajectory of her pain, her life.
Wow.
But it took her 7 years and several thousands of dollars
Yeah.
later. And a lot of us who have this unique brilliance, this genius that we have within us that sometimes we don't even see. We are like that doctor. We've got the goods, we've got the solution. But
Right.
when people need us, they can't find us.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
underscores the importance to, make sure you're being discovered so the world can get to enjoy the brilliance that you have to bring into the world.
So how do you propose that people do that? How do they get discovered?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways, right? One of the not best kept secrets, but probably highly underutilized tool is LinkedIn. You and I are both on LinkedIn. And the beauty of LinkedIn, amongst a bunch of different social media platforms, is the ability to, one, position yourself the way that best serves not only you and what you do, but the audience that you want.
Right.
Connect with, right? So whether that's as an expert, as a thought leader, whatever it is that sets your brand apart,
Right.
you've got a unique ability to do that. Most people, even in the year 2021, I had a conversation with somebody the other day who's a CPA who connected with me, and a few, conversations into our initial connection, he's like, "Hey, Ike, there's nothing here." And he called it your resume. He goes, "There's nothing here on your resume that says you're a CPA." And so it's kind of casting a little doubt as to whether or not. I was like, well, for starters, I've held my CPA license since 1998. I go, I don't run an active traditional CPA practice because
Right.
it's not what makes me come alive.
Right.
And furthermore, it's not what I'm promoting. So why on earth would I
Right.
be highlighting that on my LinkedIn profile? So I go, hey, pro tip, make sure you use LinkedIn to emphasize what you're up to in the world today, what's relevant
Agreed.
about what it is that you're doing and how you can benefit those who need to be exposed to what you do. So again, the whole idea of expert positioning yourself in
Right.
a way that not only serves you and your goals and needs, but again, the audience you're trying to reach. And then secondarily is really learning how to celebritize your personal brand in the space that we're in. We're not a Coca-Cola, we're not a Nike. We don't spend billions of dollars,
Right.
sponsoring tennis games and football games to get massive awareness as to who we are. But LinkedIn can be the great equalizer. You could be connected. You could connect to the CEO of Nike and Coca-Cola, right? Once you do sufficient research to give them a reason to hit the connect button when you send a connection request.
Right.
20 years ago, who would ever think we'd have that close proximity to the CEO of a major Fortune 500 company?
Right.
So important to learning how to position yourself properly and then how to celebritize your personal brand, which is, again, goes back to how you show up on LinkedIn, what information you're communicating, and how you are reinforcing the idea that there's something unique and different about your brand, that you are a thought leader, that you are an expert in the field or the niche in which you serve.
Right.
Not just the name and title alone, but I can check articles you've written, I can look at your content, and get a sense of who you are and what it is you have to offer, and start the whole process of know, like, and trust before ever having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
How brilliant is that, right?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought know, like, and trust into it. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said they see it flipped of that. They see that trust level actually comes first before before the getting to like you even, and that what we put out there does need to be genuine. It needs to be trust developing. So based on what you just said, you would recommend then that people check their profile, their LinkedIn profile frequently, and make sure it's punching up the right things that you want people to find. Because remember, it's a database, folks, and people can punch in criteria and the things they want to look for. So you need to know what those keywords are that they'll find you when they're looking for what you offer.
Absolutely. Just as you could go through the exercise of making sure your website is SEO friendly, you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is also SEO friendly for those keywords or those things that people might look for if they're interested in a business coach, a relationship coach, a consultant, whatever the expertise is, right? Make sure that the profile reflects that. So purely on a search term basis, you come up high in the ranking when they're looking for people.
Very good. Very good. So tell us what's going on in your world today. What have you got going on?
Yeah. Appreciate that. So at the macro 5,000 foot level, I am founder of the Righteous Billionaire Movement, where we are on a mission to raise up an army to literally create the next wave of billionaires. Our goal is to raise an army of 10,000 billionaire leaders by the year 2030. These are leaders who have not only the leadership capital, but also the financial capital that is necessary to be world changers as they restore righteous leadership in our nation while making purpose-driven and legacy-impacting changes. So that's 30,000 foot level. At the micro level,
that's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful, yeah. At the micro level, what I do is I work with visionary entrepreneurs, working professionals, and families. They hired me to help them shrink their financial independence timeline down from as much as 30 years to as little as 2 years. Part of this is really my entire story. I shared with you earlier on about how the trifecta of things happened to me right around 9/11. How bankruptcy started all over. In just 5 years after starting with zero, I was a multimillionaire with 6 figures of passive income. Just 5 years. That doesn't happen by coincidence. There's something very strategic that one has to go through. So through all of my experiences in the financial services space, in the leadership and the coaching space, all the stuff that I've done, again, we go back to that whole idea of purpose, kind of finding out why did all that happen, right? It's built this crescendo to realize that one, we have a complete, a scarcity, a lack of what we'd call sufficient leadership, right? We are facing a scarcity of really good leaders. You don't have to be in the political sector to know that that's true. You don't have to be a Democrat. You don't have to be a Republican. You can look at the landscape of what's happening in our world right now and recognize that never in probably the history of the world has there been a more of a clarion call for real leaders to stand up, right? So the time that I've spent with the John Maxwell team and all the mentorship I've gotten from them, that's coming together to help with this movement where we're looking to raise up these leaders who have the leadership, right? They've got the ability to steward the gift of leadership. But because we recognize that the agenda that we see that's being promulgated across the world today, those agendas are being led by billionaires. So what good does it do to raise up incredible leaders who, when they show up to try to infiltrate the world, as we would call it, to get their leadership out there, it's like a lame duck session because they don't have the financial wherewithal to do what's necessary to effect change. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about. That's why I can see like all of my experiences, whether it's in the leadership track with John Maxwell, whether it's in the financial services side, what I've done in the past, whether it's in coaching and consulting, all of those things coming together to help move this movement forward and do some really legacy impacting stuff in the world.
That's incredible. And I like that you're talking about leadership. leaders come in multiple varieties. And we've had in the world some leadership that was not what I would call credible leadership, or what you're calling righteous leadership. So talk for a moment about the qualities of a leader that you're developing, because I think that's so important, because we find people in leadership roles all the time who aren't good leaders. Mm. So what are the qualities that you're developing or that you're looking for? Maybe what's the base you're looking for, and then what you help them develop further. Does that make sense? Is that a good question?
There's a level of authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability that helps shape the kind of leaders that we need. One of the biggest things that I've seen is people who are good leaders in the marketplace, but if you have a conversation with their spouse or with their kids, you hear an entirely different story. So for me, some of the best leaders are first leaders in their household.
Yeah, agreed.
Their spouses rave about them as an individual, as a husband, as a father, whatever roles. Their children look to them. The children are naming Nicki Minaj and Michael Jordan or whomever it is who their heroes are. When they ask them in school, who's your hero?
It's my dad.
They point to their dad. They point to their mom, right?
My mom or my dad. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that is one major test that I think a lot of people fail in terms of, true leadership. And then just the ability to really be a servant leader, right? We can look at Jesus as an example in terms of how he served the people that he was called to lead. And so many people want the power and the influence that's associated with leadership, but they don't want to pay their dues. They don't want to serve first, right?
Yeah.
So there's, so many different aspects to it that we can look at, but those are just a few things that, bubble up to the surface right now.
Very good. Very good. I know that you've got a lot going on. I think I'm going to segue here, though. I think let's segue over to a few questions that I have that can help our listeners as they listen to someone who's obviously successful. I mean, as you said, you went from 18 months of unemployed, zero income, to where you're at now, in 5 years, a multimillionaire again, 6 figures in passive income. That would say to a lot of people that, hey, he's got it all together. He doesn't have any challenges in his business. Put you on that pedestal up there. So, part of my mission is to help entrepreneurs recognize that no matter what's happening in your business and where you've gotten to, there are challenges or opportunities, whatever we want to call them. Could you talk just for a moment about what are some of the challenges in your business these days?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the problems and challenges that I see in my line of work, and I think this is applicable to a lot of what we call members of the expert space, right? The space in which you and I play in, whether those are coaches, consultants, course creators. Right. I think we've all been sold the wrong bill of goods when it comes to success in our space. There's a lot of stuff, whether it's on social media or otherwise, where you see talk about the hustle and the grind, right? We've all been taught that the key to success is to work hard, to go to school, get a good education, and work hard. And, not to say that that's not a formula that can work, but I would beg to differ as to how effective that's working, right? I remember having a conversation with another colleague of ours, and runs a very thriving company. And he shared a story with me.
I think I might know who that is.
Yeah, you probably do. He shared a story with me about how both him and his wife were up till like 11 p.m. one day at work. And like all the employees who worked for him had left at like 6. And so he's sitting there going like, something's wrong with this equation. We're the employers, yet all of our employees are gone. Here we are.
They're all home in bed and we're working our tails off still.
We're still working our tail off, right? And so one of the unique things that we need to learn about the formula for success is if we could ever get to the point where we could get our money working as hard, if not harder for us than we've been accustomed to working for it, that completely changes the
Doesn't it
success
though?
game. It
Yeah.
absolutely does.
Turns it on its head.
Turns it completely off its head. And that's how we are able to talk about being able to shrink a 30-year financial independence timeline down to as little to as much as 5 years. See, because if you can position your money, if you can get up every day and you go, hey, I'm going to work today, and based on the number of clients I need to serve, I'm going to make X amount of dollars. You look at your money and you go, hey, what are you going to do today? All right, let me send you to work and see what you can
There
do.
you go. I like that.
And you start doing that in a repetitive, and it becomes so second nature, and you identify the right opportunities. Like in little as 2 to 5 years, you could be singing a completely different story as to the impact to yourself financially. And so there's just a mind shift that needs to take place there in terms of this age-old formula to success that we've all kind of bought into.
Wow.
And that's the reason why the name of my masterclass is Living Your Life on Fire. It's an acronym for financially independent and retired early.
Oh, I like that.
Getting back to the discussion about finding our purpose, it also means being refired early about what it is you're supposed to bring into the world. So
that's perfect, because that's where I wanted to go, was how really has, I mean, obviously we can tell you're passionate about what you're doing, but how that following that purpose and passion has made the difference in your business. That's kind of where I wanted you to go next. How that's impacted your business.
Yeah, it makes all the difference, because, you know, I tell the story about if you've ever been around some teenage kids who maybe watched their whomever they have a crush on, whether it's Brad Pitt from back in the days, you know, they watch the movie and they come out of that movie, and if you run into those kids, it's almost like they are hired outside sales agents for that. They will wear you out in convincing you, oh, Richie, you have to go see this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop talking about it. I find that when you tap into your purpose, you're like those kids who just saw that movie that had their crush on the big screen. You can't stop talking about it. There's a fire that's on the inside of you. And there are people who need to know exactly what it is you carry. And as long as you always show up and you're authentic and you're passionate about what it is you do, and you communicate that, the very people that are supposed to hear the message that you have to share, who now recognize you as someone of authority and influence who can get them to the next chapter of their life, they're like, where in the world have you been all my life, Gina? I mean, we see these videos all the time on YouTube where it shows like a cattle rancher or a farmer who's out in this, you know, massive land, and he's got all his sheep out there. And then he does the little cattle call, and it doesn't matter what the sheep are doing. They stop what they're doing and they just marshal their way to the rancher, and they do whatever he says to do. Yeah. Here's the difference. You and I could stand to the left and to the right of that farmer, try to mimic the call that he made out to the sheep. They look like we don't even exist.
Right.
Why? Because sheep know the voice of their shepherd.
They do indeed.
The tribe that we're supposed to serve, they know the voice of the tribe leader. And when we get to that point where we tap into our purpose, we are literally like that farmer, that shepherd out there, and we're launching and releasing our voice into the marketplace. And the tribe that we're supposed to serve, they instantly get the vibe, and they're like, okay, you know, how can I work with you? You don't even have to ask for the order. They are asking you, right?
Right. That attraction. You remind me very quickly of it when I lived on the Navajo Indian Reservation in southern Utah for about 7 years. I remember one morning we had a Navajo sister who was late coming to church, and the reason she was late was that she was a shepherdess, and her sheep had gotten out, and she and all the family, everyone around, were gathering sheep, but the sheep came to her. They knew the shepherdess's voice. and they came to her, and it was like, that was just, it so brought that scripture home to my mind, and made it so real,
So real.
seeing that played out. But yeah, your tribe will be attracted to you, but you got to get your message out there in order for that to happen.
Absolutely.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left. I go so fast. I could sit here with you all day. Right? We talked about that you had an offer that you'd like to share with folks of something that's going on. So why don't you take a moment or two and tell us about that?
Yeah, I'd love to invite your viewers to come hang out with us on Tuesday, September the 28th. It's going to be a 3-hour deep dive masterclass on how to live your life on fire, financially independent and retired early. We're going to talk in much more depth about what it looks like to live your life on fire, to uncover and uncork and unleash your purpose. That's what we're going to spend the first hour doing. In the second hour, we're going to spend getting into the details of the 8 specific wealth models that we use to serve as an accelerant to really increase the velocity of accumulating wealth, but also creating passive income. And then in the third hour, we're going to go into the details of how we can virtually guarantee your success in accomplishing exactly what the masterclass is set out to do, show you the different ways that you can shrink a 30-year timeline for becoming financially independent down to as little as 2 to 5 years. Okay, so really, really excited about it.
Give us that date and time again.
Yes, so it's Tuesday, September the 28th. It starts at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's a 3-hour deep dive masterclass. And if you want to,
how do they get there?
Yeah, if you want to sign up for that, we'll use the old bit.ly link. So bit.ly / and LYL, short form for live your life, LYL on fire. So bit.ly / LYL on fire. Get you to
awesome. Very good. And is there a cost to that, Mike?
This is absolutely complimentary.
Oh my goodness. What a value. That's incredible.
Yes.
It has so been my pleasure to visit with you again today. This has been fun to catch up and see what you're up to and to sit in your wisdom for a while. You're a very wise man, and I always enjoy our time together. So folks,
and I thank you for the invitation.
You are so welcome. It's a pleasure, and I want to have you back again.
Love you.
So thanks for joining us, folks. We hope you'll join us next week, Monday morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. I have to stop and think. Too many things going on. So we're here every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Speaker, youth advocate, professional development coach, and published author who grew up in the inner cities of Baltimore and Jacksonville in the United States. In the USA, Rodney is regarded as one of the nation's top leaders in unlocking human potential and inspiring organizations to greatness. He's delivered speeches all over the globe and is poised to disrupt the status quo in leadership and organizational development. It is my distinct honor to introduce you to Rodney C. Burris.
So if you're anything like me, let me just speak for myself. I found myself a lot of times in situations where something's really important to me, enough that I'm willing to have an argument about it. But a couple of moments into the argument, I realized a few different things. One, all of the things that make sense in my head ain't coming out so clean. Because when over here in our head, when we're talking to ourselves about it, it's like, yeah, duh, exactly. That's what I'm. Mind you, no words were just formed, right? But we know what we mean. We know what we're talking about, and so it makes perfect sense, and it lines up, and right. Who wouldn't see without this? Just makes sense. And it's not until we attempt to take all of those swirling feelings and accompanying thoughts and package them into vocabulary words to give to another human so that they can also see where we're coming from, understand, that we realize how crazy we might sound. And some of us, instead of recognizing how crazy we sound, we double down. Oh, I'm going to defend this because right? And it becomes more and more amped and it falls apart. It becomes more volatile. And before you know it, something that didn't have to have two people going in divergent ways has two people going in divergent ways over something that could have been reconciled so much easier. That was me for a long time, for years. And then I had the weirdest thing happen. So put that to the side. Let me tell you a quick different story that also happened to me and how they weirdly met up. So years ago, the SAT test, standardized test to get from high school to college, had two mandatory sections and one optional section, right? And so the optionals, it was a math section just to test your computing skills, and it was like a grammar English section to just test how well could you read and comprehend and not write, but process information that was written, sometimes in a complex way, sometimes in a very simple way, sometimes in ways that interrelated words. That was the grammar or English section. And then there was an optional writing section where students were given a very short time to be given an idea, a topic to talk about. And out of that topic, they had to write some words down that showed that they could comprehend, they could process, and they could do it in a way under pressure, under a time situation, in a way that would make sense for somebody else, right? Well, years ago, that optional portion became mandatory. So the test went from having 2 sections to 3. It always had 3, but one was just like, if you feel like it. So then it had the 3rd mandatory section. And what they found is that so many of the smart students of America were failing that section because although they could compute in the math, and although they could read and see what you were saying, if they had to, under pressure, take their thoughts, their feelings, their opinions, package them into words and give them to another human in a way that would make some sense, we got seemingly generation of folks that just couldn't do it too well. And so the SAT folks decided to contract with a bunch of organizations to find instructors to teach them how to do this. The SAT people came up with a method, and it was given out to all of these third-party providers to kind of educate in a supplemental, complementary way the young minds of America. I was one of the contractors that worked with these third-party organizations to learn this SAT approach and to go out and teach it, right? Now, fast forward, I did it for a while. I haven't done it for a while. I've since learned that that third section is no longer mandatory, right? Before, while it was, and under that time period, me and others like me were commissioned to kind of go bolster and support. What I didn't realize is the approach, the framework of approaching, let me take my ideas, right? Let me take my thoughts. Let me take my opinions. Let me take my feelings, get them together, structure them in a way so not only that I thought it through, but it's also organized, right? Because I could say a bunch of stuff that individually makes sense, but they're strung together. So if you think about a song, and if it has chords, right, you're playing and it has these chords, there's a way to arrange that music in a way that's melodic, it's beautiful, it's pleasant, it's healing. And then there's another way where it sounds like noise, same chords, rearranged, right? And so this approach didn't only just teach the whole idea of like thinking it through, but how to organize your stuff in a way that made it beautiful, that made it palatable, that made it sensible, right? And then it's still tied into whatever was the main singular point you're trying to make in the first place, right? And so in me learning that approach, I had no idea that I was at the same time teaching myself, learning kind of internally how to do this in life. See, communication is not something that exists. And particularly, I mean, there's courses that you can take about communication, like how to sell, how to pitch, how to do a job interview. But if we pulled all that stuff back and we taught the ideas, the fundamentals that undergird all of those scenarios, it helps us, one, become more in touch with ourselves and more comfortable with the me that is I. Does that make sense? A lot of times our inability to convey is because we haven't sat with whatever the idea or the topic or the argument or the pain point with ourselves. Being aware of it and fussing about it is not the same thing as processing and parsing it through, right? Peeling it apart. What do I mean? Why am I triggered? Why does this make me so mad? What is it about? Okay, this happened over here. It happened with them. It happened with this person. What is it about me that I keep finding, that they keep finding, I keep finding myself in? Because that's really what's going on. And taking the time to use those external experiences as reflectors. Oh, okay. Now okay. And it may not come immediately, but it's taking the time to do the homework, the self-work. See, this is where the home is, right? This is where we all live. And taking the time to do our homework gets us to the point where we can understand and then thus convey in a more strength-based, healthier way. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to run through the SAT approach. It's 5 steps. It's real simple. And I want you to think about this like a boxer, right? A boxer spends time in the gym hitting a heavy bag. Boom, boom, boom. The bag don't move. The bag is heavy, thus the name, right? Why? The opponent's going to move around. Why am I spending time hitting? Well, you want to know why? If you did this boom, boom against a real solid, immovable object like that kind of just moved a little bit but came right back. After a while, your shoulders hurt, your side muscles hurt, your neck hurts, the back of your neck's hurt, your upper shoulder hurts. Like all of these areas around your body experience fatigue that you never think about when it relates to boxing. Oh, let me get my jab, but you don't ever think the fatigue that goes on. Can I do this in round 3? What about round 7? What about round 9? Just imagine 3 minutes straight. And if you did one punch every other second for a minute, that's 30 punches that minute. 2 minutes, that's 60 punches. 3 minutes, that's 180 punches. 100, what is it? 100, I'm sorry. That's 90 punches. I'm so sorry. My math was getting off. That's 90 punches. That's wrong. That's one round. 90 punches in one round. So almost 100 punches times 2 rounds, 200 punches. Times 3 rounds, 300 punches. Times 4. You see? So the heavy bag is good. Then the little peanut bag, the speed bag. What's the point of that? Rhythm, timing, because this opponent is going to be. So how do I swing in a way that I know you're going to move and come back and time it just right that I get you again? It practices that skill. Well, I also need to move out the way. I need to be evasive. I can't just stand there like a plump, coming forward. Coming forward. What do I do with that? Well, that's the jump rope, right? So now I'm getting a benefit of movement. You tie all of those together and you create this experience of timing, of stamina, endurance, of agility, right? Come fight night, there's no speed bag. There's no heavy bag. But it's the skills that we learned that we can apply. So we're about to go through a speed bag, heavy bag, jump rope process. Not because you need to write an essay for the SAT, but because understanding the fundamental components of how to approach this helps me better say what I'm trying to say to my boo thing, to my cousin, to my supervisor, to my kid. Yeah? You ready? Okay, here we go. So there's something that we're talking about, right? There's something that we're talking about. Now, in us talking about this, we need to first figure out. Oh my goodness, I'm breaking this chalk all up. The first thing, we need to figure out, I'm going to move around a little bit. Okay. What is the one thing? There is one thing that we're trying to communicate. Let me tell you what some of our problem is, right? We're having an argument, and our goal is not to get this across. Oftentimes, our goal is to win, to be right, to shut them up, to get them to respect us, to validate us. Like, just hear me, don't fight me. So because of that, we add we don't just say our one thing. We bring up, we bring up the time that you did this, that you did that. You didn't listen to me when this happened. You didn't listen to me when this happened. All of this stuff. We bring in all of these things. It is not helpful. It actually detracts away from our message, and we end up with the understanding that you just want to fight me, that we don't work. It's not helpful for our own goals, because we want to have rapport with them. We want this relationship. I want you to be my bestie. We're still going to be sisters after this thing. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to harm you. I'm trying to get one idea across. But if I don't spend the time to know what my one idea is, the main thing I'm trying to say, it's going to be lost. What is the one thing I'm trying to get across? Number 2, think it through. In the time, one of the best ways to do this is to write it out, to get a journal to find some scratch paper and just, every feeling, every thought, every emotion, every anger, every arrow, every star, every circle, every underline. Think it through. Nobody does that. Nobody about to sit there, I got an argument to have. Oh, okay. Nobody has healthy relationships. Some do. You want to know something? The ones that do either learn this skill, the skill of this, the timing of this early on, or absolutely have been practicing it, even if it looks different than this. Because like with jump roping in the gym for boxers, there's other ways to improve your agility. Running the stairs at a stadium in your home can give you that agility. So it doesn't have to be the jump rope. It doesn't have to be this approach, but guaranteed that folks with healthy relationships have practiced this sort of skill. Yes? Okay, let me get through the rest of it. Think this through, preferably writing also helps you vent, like you get it out. A lot of our problems with our partners, with our coworkers, is that our feelings are pent up, and getting them out is human. And the truth of the matter is that I can't hear nothing else you got to say, no matter how logical or sound or reasonable it is. I can't even hear it because I'm full of this. But if you allow me to soda can, get that part out. That's this. Then I got some space. Then I actually can kind of give you my main idea once I got that stuff out. Writing is the venting. I know it might seem like a lot, but if this is an important topic, this is something you've been dealing with, yeah, it's worth it, right? Okay, let's go to the third one. Next thing, make it make some sense. When you went through all of this stuff and you were writing it out and getting all of your thoughts, you might have started here and came here and then added some over here and such, but you wrote it all out in one kind of fluid way. But you really realize that this thing goes right here. This supports this point, what I'm trying to say. This actually tells the story of this. And this is the thing about me that I didn't even know that happened to me when I was little, which is why this is such a big deal for me. And if you don't give me the benefit of knowing that, how am I supposed to know that? When you know better, you can do better. If I don't know better, I can't do better, right? Now, it's also incumbent upon us to pick people that want to do better, right? That's part of our job. And it's also incumbent upon us to want to be better ourselves. See, this process ain't for people that don't give a F, people that don't care. I'm going to say what I want to say. They better deal with it. This ain't for them, right? This is for people like me and you that want to become different and better. We want to become different and better. Okay? So when you brainstormed all of this out, there were categories, there were groups, there were clumps of things that kind of tied in. You want each of these things to be distinct. You want to have at least 3 good ideas, good reasons that support the main idea, some stories, some whatever it is that support the main idea, right? At least 3, because that helps me really connect to a point like, oh. If you just say it one time, you said that already. You just saying it a different way. I still don't want your little sandwich. I still don't want to go over there with y'all with them. Oh, because your grandma never took you. And possibly we could pick up some money after we leave. And it's something that is just important to you just because it's important to you. Right? The 3 work is something about 3. We find it all over society, all across cultures, all through history. Okay? Let's talk about human dynamics right now. It is what it is, right? 3 groups, distinct groups, separate, that can stand alone. This is a reason. Put that to the side. This is another reason. Put that to the side. This is a completely different reason. All of those together support my main idea. The next thing, how ideally would I love this thing to end? See, if I know at the end of our process, at the end of this conversation, where I would like to help us get to, where I hope we could land, where we could end, that would help me approach it a certain kind of way. Then we won't get lost in the middle of the stories and the groups and all that kind of stuff, because I thought it out and I organized it, and I know ideally where I want us to land. And then if I know where I want us to land, it's going to sound a little counterintuitive, but it's so valuable. Then that should inform how I open up. Yes? See, now this makes some sense. I know where I want us to land, so I want to approach the conversation in a completely different way, in a healthy way. I thought somebody was coming in my office just now. It's all good. So, with that being said, right, there's a very important topic, okay? In that important topic, there's one thing that I want to say, to get across, that's important to me about that. I need to vent and get it out. Then I need to see, once I vented and got it all, got a whole page of stuff, 2 pages worth of stuff, there's some similarities that start popping up. This goes with this goes with this, at least 3. Because of this reason, because of this reason, because of this reason, I think my main idea. I think the point that I was trying to make. That's why the point I was trying to make is important to me. And because I know where I want to land, I know how I want to approach the whole conversation. Hey, can we talk Tuesday, 5:30? Can we talk tomorrow? Can we talk 15 minutes? Okay. We were talking about this, or this kind of came up. It's something I want to say about it. It's 3 things that's really, really important to me. I just want to share it real quick. And maybe ideally we can end here. So I'm going to just share it to you, present it to you, talk it through with you, let you hear what I got to say. You give me your feedback and we'll go from there. Right? Is it going to be perfect? What on this planet is? But if we are endeavoring to become different and better, and if in our endeavoring to become different and better, we actively look for tools and approaches to inform and improve ourselves and our thinking, eventually we help create what we want to see, what we want to experience. But you have to believe that. You have to believe that you're endeavoring to become, it's like working out. It's like fitness. You're not going to do a little bit of push-ups and get Mr. Olympus muscles. It's the consistency. It's the intentionality behind the endeavor that eventually recreates the we that we are. Does that make sense? Something that's important to me. What's the one thing that I want you to understand about it? Let me think it through. Where's my paper at? Where's my diary? Where's my journal? Scratch pad. Let me think this thing through. Don't just drive in your car and be like, yep. That's not giving you the benefit. That's not valuing your humanity. Show your work like math class. Process it out until you can do this with no hands. Follow the steps. Organize it. At least 3 distinct categories that connect to the main idea, support the main idea. figure out, because of these, where I want to land. How do I want this thing to end? And because I know where I want us to land, approach the beginning of the conversation in that vein. My name is Rodney Subaris. Thank you for allowing me to share. And if this was valuable, tag some people, show some people, send it to some other people, and loop back around. Definitely subscribe, tune in, click back. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.
I'm hanging on your every word, the love inside, I feel it burn. I've never felt this way before. I've had a taste, now I want more. So here we are, just you and me. I'm overwhelmed when you touch me. You talk so sweet, I hear the sound, 'cause when you do, my feet won't touch the ground.